Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar about hospitality solutions with PBXact. My name is Elvira Crespo, and I'm the marketing manager for open source at Sangoma. Today, we have here with us Ryan Markham, Director of Sales for Open Source Solutions, and he will be the one conducting this presentation. We also have Frank Donard. He's the developer behind the hospitality modules that we will be presenting today, and he will be available in case of any specific questions about their functionality. Good morning, Ryan. Can you hear us?
Hi, Elvita. Thanks so much for the introduction there, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Again, my name is Ryan Markham. I am Director of Open Source Sales here at Sangoma, and as Elvita mentioned, we are extremely lucky to have Frank Donard joining this call all the way from France. Frank was actually the lead software developer and engineer who wrote the code for the Oracle connector module that we're going to be talking about on today's webinar. So if you do have any questions as we kind of navigate our way through here, there is a panel directly in the webinar controls that you can ask those into. And you've got the man who is behind the code and the software to help answer any technical questions that you may have as we move through today's presentation. So thanks for being here, Frank, as well. So on today's agenda, we're gonna briefly cover and talk about what is PBXact. There's a few different ways that Sangoma is going to be able to show you today how we can offer hospitality integrations within our open source phone systems. One of which is the Oracle connector module for PMS integration with Oracle software. That module is only compatible and able to be utilized with PBXact, which is our commercial version of FreePBX. So knowing that many people on today's call may not be entirely familiar with what is PBXact, we'll kind of touch on some of the key similarities and differences between FreePBX and PBXact. We'll chat about Sangoma Property Manager module for PMS integration. Then we're going to really get into it with the Oracle connector module integration, which is a brand new piece of software that we just launched roughly 60 days ago to give you the tightest integration between your PBX and Oracle PMS software. And then lastly, we'll talk about some middleware integration that we offer with some other third-party PMS software as well. All right, so we're going to jump right into what is PBXact as a good starting point here. So I mentioned previously, PBXact is it's a full UC phone system that is extremely versatile in terms of how you can deploy it. We offer PBXact in dedicated physical servers as well as software-only implementation. So you can easily roll PBXact on your own hardware or virtualize it. And for anybody on this call that is coming to us on FreePBX on your own hardware as well, and maybe the Oracle connector module is something that you were kind of hoping to take advantage of, we have a super easy conversion tool that's going to allow for you to very easily through our portal convert any existing FreePBX deployments into PBXact. And so PBXact is essentially just our commercially hardened version of FreePBX that's going to give you way more features and some more expanded capabilities. So it is an open source based system. It is more feature rich. We do include a lot of the commercial modules that we sell a la carte for FreePBX. And again, because of all those modules and expanded capabilities that you get with PBXact, specifically what we're going to be talking about today with hospitality integrations, you know, PBXact is still largely based on open source software, but gives you kind of those more UC features that you might be looking for on your production phone systems. So let's talk about how exactly are they similar and how exactly are they different, FreePBX and PBXact real quick. Again, they're based on the exact same software. They utilize the same operating system. They use the same database. They're both, at the end of the day, software-only products that you can roll in your own hardware or you can use our dedicated physical. PBXact, we actually have a cloud version of as well. One of the key differences is that we do license extensions on PBXact versus FreePBX. When you spin up a FreePBX deployment, there is no software limitation that will stop you from adding 20 users or 2,000 users on that system. On PBXact, you pay for licensed extensions on it. We do include about 90% of those commercial modules that we sell a la carte for FreePBX just out of the box with PBXact. And we also have a more proven version of those modules as well as framework for PBXact as well. What I mean by that is we only expose updates in PBXact to what we know to be the most proven or stable version of that modular framework. So a novice system admin cannot accidentally go into a PBXact and accidentally update or upgrade everything into an edge or alpha mode that potentially could cause some issues on your production phone system. We only are going to allow for those updates to go to what we know to be the most bug-free, proven, stable version so that your production phone system keeps moving along the way you want it to. The commercial modules that we do include with PBXact, some good value in some of these modules here as well, and some of them actually will play into some hospitality solutions as well. So I'm going to kind of quickly touch on these. CRM link integration. This module is included with PBXact, and what this is going to do is give you the ability to sync and hook into a CRM platform like Salesforce, Sugar, Suite, Zoho. And what we can actually do is on an inbound call into your PBX, do a screen pop based on the DID that's associated with a particular contact or organization in your CRM. So you can get call pops directly into your CRM, as well as we have the ability to attach any call recordings from the PBX into that contact page in the CRM as well. So nice integration for your CRM and PBX there. Class of service really comes into play, especially in the hospitality and specifically in our Oracle connector module, actually. So that module is included. Before I tell you what it does, I'm going to jump to extension routing. So extension routing actually is another one that's great for hotels. This essentially will allow for you on a per extension basis to lock down and choose which outbound routes a specific extension can take. So if you've got a lobby phone in your hotel or phones in the hallways or in the restaurants, and you only want those phones to be able to dial extension to extension internally and to 911 services, you have the ability to lock down those routes with extension routing. So class of service actually expands on that, and you can get even more granular control over which queues, inbound routes, outbound routes, voicemail access, things like that extension gets control over. So you can have different class of services set up for different levels of guests based on their VIP status or things like that in the hotel, different class of service. Much more granular control and kind of an expansion on what extension routing does for you. You get call recording reports. In PBXact, we support call recording. You get granular control with that out of the box if you want to record all calls, incoming calls, outgoing calls, etc. If you've done that without this module in FreePBX, it can be a bit cumbersome to sort through the CDR and try to find a specific call recording. This module makes it super easy to search for specific call recordings based on destination, DID, timestamp, date stamp, caller ID name. And not only is it much more easy to search and find those call recordings, it allows for you to archive them and store them and generate very easy to find and sort through reports of your call recordings. Conference Pro allows for users to manage their conference bridges through user control panel. Fax Pro, if you're doing faxing with us, this is going to give you the ability to have a cover sheet for faxes that you send outbound, as well as archive those inbound faxes on the phone system as well. Park Pro could be a useful one in a hotel phone system instance. I could see basically Park Pro allows for you to have multiple parking lots. So you could have a parking lot for your reservations team. You could have a parking lot for the golf operations team, parking lot for restaurants, etc. So you can kind of separate out those different areas where calls are parked. And you also get a park and announce feature with Park Pro on PBXact as well. Paging Pro gives you the ability to do scheduled pages and prepended recordings into your pages. Sysadmin Pro is going to give you DDNS setup inside the PBX, as well as this allows for SSH keys to be installed so that the Sangoma support teams can easily and securely provide remote support to you in the event that you need it. Sangoma soft phones, this is a huge value driver on PBXact. Every user gets access to both desktop and mobile soft phone clients. Big value drive there, huge shift these days for everybody to kind of need that mobility, and we include that software free on PBXact. Voicemail Notify, this module could be useful to maybe a smaller type of a hotel instance. Maybe you have someone who, it's a smaller type of hotel, motel, and maybe you don't always have somebody who's working behind the desk during all hours of the night, maybe middle of the night. The hotel owner operator goes into their apartment that's sort of near the office and goes to sleep. Well, if you have Voicemail Notify set up, if a guest or somebody calls and leaves a voicemail on the phone system, it can then immediately trigger a series of phone calls to a predefined list of numbers in which it will play that voicemail greeting to the person who answers the call first, and then give them the ability to accept responsibility for whatever that guest needs and go and take care of it without having to worry about personal cell phone numbers or having your cell phone ring from that perspective. Voicemail Reports is going to give you the ability to listen to all voicemails on the system, manage voicemail passwords on the system, as well as listen to voicemail greetings on the system. And lastly, we do include Endpoint Manager software with PBXact for all of our SD and P series phones. Lots of great reasons to choose our phones. The free Endpoint Manager software is certainly no exception. All right, so that is a quick overview of PBXact and kind of the key differences between FreePBX and PBXact. And again, we covered that because in order to use our Oracle Connector module, you do have to have a PBXact instance in place. It's not compatible with FreePBX. Okay, so we're going to move on to our first piece of software here that offers actual hotel PMS software-like functionality. The Sangoma Property Management module. This module has actually been available from Sangoma for a couple of years now. This module is it's a standalone module that you can purchase that will basically give you functionality that you would not have if, say, you're a smaller hotel operation that does not have any sort of PMS software. So through a customizable dashboard in User Control Panel, the hotel has the capability to synchronize things with the PBX and things like their reservations, check-in, check-out, room transfers. They can schedule automatic wake-up calls through User Control Panel for the guests. They can view and manage any billing from, minibar, things like that, as well as get access to any reporting for calls that were made from those rooms, should you want to, get an idea of how many calls were made to potentially charge the guests for any calls that were made with that. So again, this is it's a standalone module for smaller type of hotel, motel, bed and breakfast type scenarios. Who may not have an existing PMS but kind of want some of this functionality. This is a great module to get them that. It does work in tandem with our Oracle Connector module. So this module is required, and I'm probably going to say this 5 or 6 more times today. You have to have Sangoma Property Management module licensed on your PBXact in order to have Oracle Connector licensed and working on your PBXact as well. So it works with Oracle Connector to provide that connectivity to Oracle itself. So we're going to move to the Sangoma Oracle Connector module now. This is probably the meat and potatoes of this presentation as far as hospitality integrations goes. Oracle, there are a lot of different PMS providers out there for hotels. Oracle is probably the most popular one in existence. So we have lots of hotels that are utilizing this software. And now Sangoma has a way for you to directly integrate our open source PBXact system with the Oracle software module. Again, it requires the Sangoma property management module in order for this to work. But once you license both of these, essentially you're going to fully integrate your PBXact with Oracle software. This is going to allow for two-way communication for things like scheduling and setting wake-up calls, room status changes from the phones in the room to the Oracle software and vice versa. The ability to send messages from your Oracle software to guests in their rooms and vice versa. Consulting, again, those expenses for the telephone, minibar, lobby bar, room service. Believe it or not, in this day and age of most people having cell phones everywhere and thinking that all they're going to use when they travel is a cell phone anyway, the majority of hotels report that telephony expenses are still one of their largest expenses that they have. So having a good way to allocate charges from a call accounting perspective and communicate that directly back and forth to Oracle is a big value for a lot of hotels still. And of course, great value for desks or for guests and for housekeeping to be able to very easily intercommunicate messages between the two of them from the phone in the room and check out and pay as well. So what does it do? It really is going to kind of automate a lot of different processes. Essentially, what's going to happen is a guest is going to check in at the front desk. Once they do that, the guest's information is sent into the Oracle PMS. Oracle is then going to send that info to the PBX about the guest. The calls are now going to be enabled in the class of service for that room that was predefined in your PBX settings. And as soon as the guest checks in, calls are enabled and interactions between the guest's activities and the PMS are now fully synchronized to do full two-way communication. Some examples of the integrations that we can provide from the PMS to the PBXact would be check-in. So as soon as the guest checks in, that's going to automatically enable that class of service for calls to be able to be made outbound in the room. And when they check out, conversely, that's going to disable that class of service, and no longer will those outgoing calls be enabled based on that class of service definition. Room moves. So if you're in PMS and you're moving a guest to a new room, that information is automatically going to be communicated over to the PBXact as well. It'll move their room number, likewise moving their extension number, as well as any updates to new guest information getting entered into the Oracle software will be updated and communicated in the PBX as well. Reminders for things like wake-up calls. Oracle PMS can set do not disturb to the guest's room for them. And again, class of service, enabling or disabling or making changes to it, two-way communication there. So then looking at communication from the PBXact back to the PMS, call accounting. So any of those calls that are taking place, how long they're taking place, where they're going to, that information can get communicated back to PMS. Room status changes, super easy for housekeeping to be able to mark a room clean, dirty, clean, occupied, clean, inspected, dirty, vacant, etc. We can send minibar charges directly to the PMS from the phones in the room as well as the notifications for wake-up calls and messages. Typically, a big concern when you are talking to a hotel or a hotel is looking at moving to an IP-based phone system is, we have hundreds of analog phones in place right now, and we cannot afford to have this monster capital expense of buying hundreds of new IP phones, which it's just not in the budget. So you actually have the ability to allow for those hotels to keep their analog infrastructure and their analog phones. There's no need to rip those out. Enter Vega gateways. Our Vega gateways can support up to 50 FXS ports. to allow for you to be able to connect 50 analog phones. The gateway just SIP connects back to your PBXact on the local premise or virtualized or wherever it may be hosted for you. We've got gateways that can support 50, 24, or our Vegas 60s have 4 or 8 port FXS options. So it enables you to be able to offer this solution to a hotel without asking them to, commit to spending $250,000 in new IP phones if they've got hundreds or thousands of phones. Maybe they've got a budget or a budget in a 5-year plan where they can do, 100 new IP phones a year for the next 5 years. You can easily roll Vega gateways and IP phones, have those in a mixed environment out there, and slowly, rip the gateways out and replace with IP phones as you move forward. And there's great reasons why we want to kind of make those steps in that direction. And there are certainly going to be a lot of new hotels that are being built out there that are going to go directly to a full IP-based system. And in doing so, choosing Sangoma phones is really kind of going to be a no-brainer if you're planning to use PBXact and our Oracle connector module as well. There's a lot of great reasons to choose the S phones with PBXact. If you're going to be using Oracle connector, there's certainly no exception there. Again, we include the endpoint manager software completely free of charge, so you can easily build templates and configure phones remotely for hundreds of phones at a time. Have those phones pull down their configs. There's true zero-touch provisioning on these phones. And we have phone app support, including an application for the Oracle software, which makes everything that Oracle software has a real breeze from the guest experience in the room, as well as even the housekeeping experience in the room. So a quick peek at if you're using our Sangoma phone apps and you have this Oracle phone app on there, right from the face of the phone, when you log into it, you're going to be able to see what your phone is, or your room number, or your extension number. If there are any messages that have been communicated from the Oracle PMS team at the front desk to you, you'll be able to view those. You'll be able to view, and even if you want to change room status, I can't imagine too many guests are going to want to change that themselves. However, housekeeping is certainly going to prefer to be able to push the button and toggle the arrow down to the status to change that. But if, again, you're using analog phones, that can all be done via feature codes as well. In the application for room charges, you have the ability to get a breakdown of any charges that have been added to your room from something like the telephone bill or the lobby bar. You can see if your kids were renting any movies they weren't supposed to rent when you went out to dinner with the wife, and verify your dinner charges from that with her. Messages. So you can have canned messages displayed to be able to send these directly from the phone as well to housekeeping, front desk, maintenance, etc. With the S phones, we can very easily do communication back and forth through Oracle and the phone through messaging right from the face of your S phones. Another option that you can have, whether you're using IP phones or not, is to give your guests access to a desktop dashboard with all this functionality as well. We mentioned earlier, it might not be quite so easy breezy if you're using analog phones with feature codes and things like that to be able to send messages and change room status and things like that as well. But we have the ability to populate a user control panel for each room. So in a desktop browser, each user has the capability to get that same level of functionality and features for the integration with Oracle, as well as their billing and things like that, in a browser-based desktop panel where they can view room status, send messages, check their billing, set an alarm clock or a wake-up call. All that can be done directly through our browser-based user control panel as well. Taking a peek here at the kind of the other side as well, what it looks like from an Oracle standpoint. You can see here that we've got different color-coded displays available to you based on what feature code or which option was selected from the phone in the rooms to display different room statuses here. So we can see if it's dirty vacant, dirty occupied, clean vacant, clean occupied, inspected vacant, or inspected occupied. Nice, easy color-coded graph display there. And if we hover over the little icon in there as well, it's going to give us a little bit more information. It's going to display to me what the specific class of service is set to for that room. Maybe they call and said, hey, I tried to, call my friend in England and it won't go out. And well, this will say that's because we don't have that class of service enabled for your guest level, sir. We can change that for you. It's going to give them the voicemail secret as well. If the guest forgot what they set for any sort of a voicemail password in there, you get access to that, and then call status from here as well. Lastly here, we have some middleware integration as well. So again, not everybody's going to be using Oracle out there. Sangoma has partnered with Char to provide some middleware between your PBXact and some different PMS providers that may be out there as well. This software is especially popular in Europe, but it's going to largely give you a lot of the same functionality that you've seen here today with our Oracle connector module if you're using the Char integration module as well. All right, let's chat about pricing. So with PBXact, it's a software-only product, right? So pricing for PBXact software is essentially going to be $95 base fee for the PBX itself, plus a $5 user or extension fee for every room that you have. So if you have a 200-room hotel, you're probably going to be in the let's call it 225, 230 extension range by the time you add in all the other phones that you may need out there. So your fee for the Oracle connector module would be $95 plus that 225 users times $5. And keep in mind, you also have to have Sangoma Property Management module licensed as well in order for this to work. It is annually renewed, but we do also offer discounts for any of our partners on this. And we have full support included with your PBXact support contract, as well as remote installs are available. So you can have the full Sangoma team configure, handhold, provision, not only your phones and ring groups and queues and time conditions and things like that, but we'll fully work with you to help make sure that we get Oracle talking with the PBX, everything up and running from that perspective as well. And as far as a premise-based option goes, because you can do this on any of our dedicated physical servers, the pricing is going to vary on that based on the size of the server and the number of extensions that are on that server. So it's going to be slightly less expensive for the Oracle module on a System 60 than what it would be on a PBXact System 1200 that could support up to 1200 rooms. So we're going to go through just a quick recap here. So PBXact is a more proven, more stable version of FreePBX. It's got way more features. We include all those modules out of the box with it. And it is required for you to use our Oracle connector module as well. Sangoma Property Manager, this is a completely standalone module for hotels that don't already have a PMS system in place that can give them that PMS light functionality, and it is required to be licensed with our Oracle connector module. As far as the Oracle connector module itself goes, again, you have to have PBXact for that. It's not going to work with FreePBX, but it's going to fully integrate and automate a lot of processes of communications between Oracle and your PBX. Again, with support, we have remote installs available to get full white glove hand-holding professional services to make sure that your project goes smoothly from the time you purchase it to the time you cut over. Our team's right there all the way. And then you'll continue to get ongoing support on the Hotel Oracle connector module as well through your PBXact support contracts. That is essentially it for today for the solutions that we have to offer for PBXact and PMS integration. I know that there were probably some questions that came in that Frank has been answering out there as well. I'm not sure, Frank, if there were any that we didn't get to address yet, or if there's any last minute questions here that I'm going to kind of peek through and see if I can find.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my name is Frank Danard from France.
Hey, Frank.
Yes, Johan, you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. The question: how many PMS we can support? Is there a list? No, there is only a Oracle for now, but we expected to. Why not to include other PMS brand in the future? Why not? But for now, it's only Oracle. So Fidelio, Opera, something like that. So
okay, great.
Serial port PMS connection. Yes, serial port PMS connection is 5025 usually, but you can change, you can define, whatever you need. So if you decide to 5,000, it's okay, no problem. This port is can be defined as you like. I missed most webinar. I don't know. So for all about the question, I missed the most of the webinar. It's their replay. Ryan, if you can.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks for answering those questions, Frank. There are a couple of handouts here as well, some PDFs that you can download that can provide some additional information to you here as well. Of course, we have a bounty of information on our wiki that you can also access to get more information about any of the things that I talked about today with respect to anything from PBXact to class of service module to soft phones to property management module to Oracle connector module to S phones. All of that information is available in our wiki, which is wiki.freepbx.org. I'm leaving my contact information here as well on the screen if there are questions that come to you later, or if you have any feedback for me as well, feature requests, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help however I can. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Frank, anything else from you?
Yes, there was a question from James. This work with the hotels PMS systems. Yes, it's only for Fidelio, Opera, so something compatible with Oracle systems. So just for now, I think Mitel is not ready, is not compatible yet. So maybe one day we can think to add this add-on for my Mitel. I think. I don't know.
Any other questions?
But if I can add something, I think there is a mistake on the slide. Sorry, Ryan. I never saw this one. About the mini bar. The mini bar is not managed through PBXact or for Oracle connector. So because Oracle connector doesn't manage any cost, so the minibar is directly managed through Oracle server, so Fidelio, Opera, etc. So it's enabled to know what the cost is. So this part is not on the good place. It's the information is known through phone apps. So when you you need to know your consumption or UCP, or if you want to know what's the consumption for you. So, but that's it.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for that that last bit there, and thank you everyone for joining us. Again, please reach directly out to me with anything, questions that you have. I super appreciate your time. Looks like we're giving you 22 minutes of your day back. Hope you enjoy however you spend that. Thank you.